Okay, clear, guys? So if anyone cannot work on the assignments, so this is not the right, this is not the right place for them. So that's what I want to clarify. For new joinees also, only when you are ready to work on the assignments and share the scripts, then only please confirm your joining by paying the fees. Otherwise, you can discontinue. Okay. All right, guys. So
Yeah,
otherwise,
Pawan, just one question. How often is this assignment you give in a week?
so it will be like 2 scripts per week. So that means
Okay.
for every 3 days or 2 days, you'll have one scripting assignment.
Okay.
Those who are working, you can work on the scripting on weekends and you can share it by Monday.
Okay. Okay. No issues.
So otherwise, if someone is attending the training and not practicing, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, true.
Okay. And they will end up in, doing all sort of malpractices because they paid fees, that is our problem. So some
Okay.
people, don't practice and, but they paid fees and join, right? Then they
Yeah.
do all sort of malpractices, selling the recorded sessions, all these bullshit things. So that's why you want to cut it down. And in the beginning itself, we are, I am very particular about this and I am repeating this many times. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
understood.
Yeah. So now what are the reasons for doing performance testing for a newly developed application, right? So to assess readiness of production, so that means if you want to assess how ready the application is for to go live, so we do performance testing. That is one reason for doing performance testing, and to determine the user load capacity of existing systems as well, right? To determine what is the maximum user load that it supports, or what is the user load that it supports with response times, while response times are within the SLS, right? While response times are within the SLS, what is the load that it supports? And and what is the maximum load that it can support? To determine that also, we do this performance testing and compare performance characteristics with different system configurations. To compare the performance characteristics with different system configurations, right? So different software configuration or different hardware configurations, right? And then another reason for doing this is to support system or application tuning, to support system tuning or application performance tuning. Also, we do this, performance testing. Now, what is performance tuning? We'll discuss it later. What is application performance tuning? It will be discussed later on, right? And creating benchmark for feature systems. Okay. So this is one of the common or frequently asked question. What is the difference? What is benchmark testing and what is baseline testing? Okay. So one reason for doing performance testing is to create benchmark for feature systems. That is one reason for doing performance testing, right? And then compare the application performance on multiple platforms as well. For example, we have different hardware platforms and we have different software platforms as well, isn't it? Isn't it, guys? So coming to hardware platforms, we have Intel processors, AMD processors, etc. Coming to software platforms, OS platforms, we have Windows, Linux, etc. Isn't it? So if you want to compare the performance characteristics on multiple platforms, then also we do this performance testing, right? For example, if you want to a brand new application is developed, and now client want to see on which platform the application gives optimal performance, whether we get optimal performance on Windows or Linux, right? If you want to see, then we need to host the application on different platforms and we need to do performance testing, isn't it? Clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So this, whether if you want to check what is the performance on Windows and Linux, you can run the application. See, I mentioned few platforms here, Windows OS and as well as RHEL means Red Hat Enterprise Linux. These are all Linux flavors, right? From here to here, isn't it? So let me use, hold on, just give me a moment. Right. So these are all Linux platforms, isn't it? So Red Hat Enterprise Linux, RHEL stands for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and then CentOS, Fedora, SUSE Linux, Ubuntu Linux. So these are all different flavors of Linux, isn't it? And you have Windows OS, Linux flavors here, and then Mac OS. Now, if client want to see on which platform we get optimal performance from the application, right? That can be another reason for doing performance testing. Okay. And then validate any application against its performance criteria. To validate any application against its performance criteria, also we do this performance testing. What is meant by performance criteria? Now let us understand what is meant by performance criteria. Okay, someone got disconnected. Okay, I think joined back. They joined where? Okay. So this is class notes document, guys, by the way. Now let us understand what is meant by performance criteria of an application. Right. So we came across a term called performance criteria, and one objective for doing performance testing for a newly developed application is to validate the application against its performance criteria, isn't it? Now let's understand what is meant by performance criteria. Performance criteria of an application. Clear, guys? So so any application, okay. So before discussing about performance criteria of a software application, so I want to explain one example. Okay. So anyone having this Royal Enfield, or like what are those bikes, guys? Other bikes, uh, Harley Davidson bike. Or did anyone drive those bikes?
Yes, Pawan.
Nice, very good. Who is this? Santosh.
Santosh.
Santosh. Okay. So if you take any of those Harley Davidson, or Royal Enfield, or any of those bikes, right? Royal Enfield, or any other brands that you remember. Um, what is that? There are a couple of other more, right? Mm, KTM. Yes, guys. What are those? Like about 300 cc bikes. What are the other brands, guys, in that area?
KTM, Royal Enfield,
Um,
and in Royal Enfield we have a multiple models called Classic 350, Meteor,
okay.
Himalaya. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Right.
Triumph,
Huh?
sir, Triumph, BMW,
BMW. Okay. Yes. Right. So
Triumph.
now they cost lakhs of rupees, right? Starting from 3 lakhs, isn't it? Yes or no? So why people spend that much money? Yes or no, guys? They cost more than 3 lakhs, isn't it? 3 lakhs or about 2 lakhs, right?
Yes.
So why are those special, or why do people spend that much?
Due to
Performance and passion. Some.
Pickup.
Right. So main thing is like because of their high CC and high performance, isn't it? So they have some performance criteria. For example, all those bikes will have some performance criteria. So they will be able to reach 100 kilometers per hour speed, right? In less than 10 seconds, isn't it? 3 seconds or 4 seconds, like that. Yes or no, guys? So that is special about those bikes, isn't it? They can reach 100 kilometers per hour speed in 3 seconds or 5 seconds or less than 10 seconds. Yes or no? Whereas normal bikes takes more than 10 seconds to reach that. So this is the performance criteria of those bikes, right? These are, that is one of the performance criteria, not only speed, but also about, load bearing capacity. They can pull more load, isn't it, guys? Right? So this is the performance criteria of those costly bikes, are those, are those special bikes, right? Similarly, your software applications also will have some performance criteria. One performance criteria can be response time should be response time SLA should be within 1 second. SLA is uh, below 3 seconds. This is one performance criteria, right? All the pages should be loaded within 3 seconds. So this is performance criteria for software applications, isn't it? Okay, I see someone joined with display name as Hari. Who is this?
Yes, sir. Last Saturday.
Hari Krishna? Is it Hari
Yes,
Krishna?
yes, yes, sir. Actually, I forgot. Just now I verified my in
Okay.
WhatsApp, sir. Sorry for delays.
And anyone else? Did I miss any other names here?
Sir, Shravani.
Uh-huh. Stravani. Yeah.
Uh, my name is also missing in it. Mera.
Sure. Yeah.
Sir, Raghunath.
Raghunath, yeah. All right. How can I miss Raghunath? Raghunath is one of my favorite students. For your information, guys, Raghunath is from BSc Agriculture background, complete non-computers background. But I believe like he will be one of the first to fight to get placement in this batch. Okay, I strongly believe it. Yeah. Okay. So these are some performance criteria for software applications. What are those? So response time SLA should be less than 3 seconds, right? And error rate should be more than error rate should be less than 1%. Should be less than 1%. So this is one performance criteria. That means 99% of the transaction should pass, right? See, you see sometimes when you do some fund transfer through a net banking application, once in a while the transaction will fail and it will ask you to reinitiate the fund transfer, isn't it? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, Pawan.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for net banking applications or any e-commerce application like Amazon or Flipkart, 1% of the error rate is fine, is acceptable, right? I mean, I'm not saying that every application will have same error rate, expected error rate, but up to 1% of the error rate is acceptable. But 99% of the transaction should pass. So transactions, like 99% transaction, 99% of the transactions should pass. Transaction should pass successfully, right? So error rate can be, up to 1%, right? This is one performance criteria. This is one of the performance criteria. So in this way, there will be different performance criteria for different application. But for mission critical applications, for some mission critical applications like healthcare applications or uh, aeronautical applications, for those applications, 1% of the error rate is not acceptable, isn't it? Even 1% of the error rate is not acceptable for healthcare applications or aeronautical applications, isn't it? Or any other mission critical applications. Mission critical means like rocket launching application, those kind of. For those applications, even 1% of the error rate is not acceptable, right? So there will be different performance criteria for different software applications, right? So to validate the application against its performance criteria, also we do this performance testing, isn't it? And then uncover what components of an application suffer poor performance and under what conditions. So to uncover, to find out what components of an application. Component means what is a component. What is the meaning of a word component? What is the meaning of a word component, Raghu?
Sir, any feature or any part of the software.
Right, any small part of a bigger thing, right? So that is called as a component, right? So now any software application will be having, like say did we discuss about this application architecture? I think we did not come till there, right? So this is the typical 3-tier web application architecture. So if you see here, users will be using some browser like this, some browser like Internet Explorer, Firefox or Chrome, and any application, any software application means any web application or mobile application. So sorry, this is not mobile application. Mobile application architecture will be different, guys. So this is for web application. If you see here, it is mentioned here clearly that this architecture is designed. I'm sorry. So this architecture is designed primarily for HTML web browsers, not mobile apps. So this is a typical web application architecture. Now, if you see, there are different components of a web application, right? See, guys, if you take IRCTC or ICICIbank.com or HDFCbank.com or Big Basket, so all those applications, web applications, consists of some similar architecture. Like it will have something called web server, application server, database server, right? Now these are and there is also something called load balancer, right? So and we will discuss later what is the purpose of each of these components. What is a web server? What is an application server? What is a database server? We will discuss that going in the coming up sessions. But these are different components of a web application. Okay, any web application is made up of different components like this, and there is something called load balancer as well, right? So we'll discuss all those components. Now, if there are any performance issues, if any application is having some performance issues, it can be because of any of those components. It can be issue with web server, or it can be issue with application server or database server, or it can be an issue with network as well, or it can be a load balancer issue as well. Now to find out what components of an application, so whenever some application is not performing well, to find out which component is causing that poor performance and under what conditions is that component causing poor performance, isn't it? So to find out that also we do performance testing, right? And to find out any performance bottlenecks or performance issues, to find out any performance issues or performance bottlenecks also we do this performance testing, right? Clear this. So this is these are the various reasons. These are few reasons for doing performance testing for a newly developed application. There may be some other reasons as well, but these are few important reasons for doing performance testing for any application, for any web application. So any queries, guys? I'll take a pause here. Any queries? Okay. So if you don't have any queries, we'll move to the next slide. So the next slide is on different types of performance testing. Okay. So if you don't, shall we move ahead, guys? Okay. Now, guys, please respond, guys. Okay. Now,
Yes.
these are different types of performance testing. These are the important types of performance testing. So I'll start with load testing, because load testing is the first and foremost test that we need to execute when you are doing any performance testing for any project. So load testing is the first and foremost one. And then comes endurance testing or soak testing, soak or endurance test, and then volume testing, scalability testing, spike testing, and stress testing. So these are the different or important types of performance testing. And I'm using the same logo for my YouTube channel as well. So if you observed, right? So please hold on, let me go to see that content. So this is the same logo that I'm using over here. Yeah, here it is, guys. So this is the same logo that I'm using for my YouTube channel. So, we are happy to inform that, we reached 13,000 subscribers with just performance testing course, right? But of course, it took a lot of time. It took, it took around, 4 years to reach this target, reach this subscriber count. So please follow our YouTube channel and share the public sessions, demo sessions, or to any of your friends if you want to refer someone, guys. Okay. So if you want to refer someone, I'll share the playlist URL. So for every batch, we have one playlist URL, by the way. Okay. So all the recorded sessions of this live training will be added to that playlist URL. Okay, so this is the playlist URL for your batch for this October 2024 batch. Which one? This one, performance testing October 2024 morning batch. So this is the playlist URL. Playlist URL means we can group certain recorded sessions as a group. We can make it as a group, and that is what a playlist URL means for those who are who are not aware. And I'll once the session is completed, once the live training is session is completed, I'll be uploading, the recorded session and add to this playlist URL. Within 1 or 2 hours, I'll be adding to that, right? Once we start scripting, sometimes, if I want to see, how many of you are able to do scripting without following recorded session, I'll be uploading the next day. Okay. Once scripting is started. Clear, guys? Not now, because, I want to give some time to make them, work on the script without referring to the recorded session. So that is when I will be taking some time. I will be delaying the recorded session. All right, guys. Okay. Now coming back to this. So now let us understand what are the different types of performance testing one by one. Okay. The first type of performance testing is load testing. So load testing is something which we do with expected or normal user load for 1 to 2 hours. Right. Load testing is something which we do with expected or normal user load for 1 to 2 hours. Right. And then comes soak or endurance test. So endurance test, these are long duration tests. Basically, these are long duration tests, right? Endurance means, durability, right? So over a long period, isn't it? So our soak is also, for longer period. So now what is long, how long it is when you say long duration, how long it is means how many hours is it is. See, here we mentioned, we I had mentioned that it is load testing is something which we do for 1 to 2 hours. And now how about, soak test? Soak test depends on the business hours of the application. The soak test duration depends on the business hours of the application, right? And then stress testing. So stress testing is something that we do with more than normal load on the application. For example, on a travel application during festival days or a vacation, right? So basically, what is the meaning of a general meaning of stress, guys? What is the general meaning of the word stress?
Hectic.
Hectic or more than normal, isn't it? So here, similarly, for any software application, if you want to test the application behavior, when there is more than normal load on the application, then we do something called stress testing, right? And which applications require stress testing? So whenever, so for example, if you take any travel application, during festival days, they will be having more than normal load, right? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes,
Whenever
sir.
there is a vacation or a festival, there will be more than normal load on any travel application, isn't it?
Yes.
Or like if you take IRCTC example, so whenever Tatkal window opens, there will be more than normal load, isn't it? So those kind of applications require stress testing as well. And every application doesn't require all these types of testing, yes, by the way. Okay. So every application doesn't require all these types of testing. So we decide, based on the application, we need to decide which application requires what type of testing. Yes, bottlenecks ante, see, performance bottlenecks means yes, not errors exactly, but performance bottlenecks means performance issues. So something is, causing the application to not perform well, then that is called as a bottleneck. By the way, did Praveen join? I saw him. Okay, I think he got disconnected. Okay.
So, who decides that what test cases need to be run for this application?
Yeah, good question. We need to decide. As a performance engineer, we need to suggest the client that their application requires this type of testing. What type of testing does their application require? Okay. Performance engineers should decide it. Okay.
Mhm.
We should be able to suggest that.
But end call is business, right? What the business wants. If he wants a spec test report, then we have to provide it.
Yes. Yeah. So in the initial phases of the project itself, we'll discuss. We'll discuss like what type of testing does the application require and all. We'll discuss that and we will finalize the scope.
Okay.
Okay. And the next type of testing is spike testing. Spike testing, which again, spike testing is not required for all the applications. Some applications where we can expect, so by the way, what is the general meaning of spike before that? Before discussing that, what is the general meaning of spike? Sudden increase in
Immediate
right.
increase
A
in
sudden
decrease
surge
in
or sudden increase, isn't it? Sudden surge or increase is called as a spike, right? So now which applications require spike testing? For example, whatever applications will have a sudden increase in the user load, right? For example, you have, like on IRCTC, we'll have a sudden increase in the user load at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, where as soon as the Tatkal window opens, isn't it? So though that application requires this spike testing. IRCTC kind of application requires this spike testing as well. Along with stress testing, it requires spike testing as well. So similarly, whenever there is a flash sale or big billion sale on Amazon or Flipkart kind of applications, they require spike testing, isn't it? And similarly, there is another type of testing called volume testing. So what is volume testing? Volume testing is something which we do with expected load and huge volume of data or number of records in the database. Okay. Volume testing is done with expected user load and huge volume of data or number of records in the database. That is about volume testing, right? And again, I repeat it again. So every application doesn't require all these types of testing. And we need to decide as a performance engineer, we need to decide which application requires what type of testing. We need to suggest the client. We should be able to suggest the client what type of testing does their application require. So however, load and soak testing are mandatory for any application. That is why I had marked both of them in a different color if you observe here, right? So if you observe here, I'm using some color coding and like I used different color for load testing and soak testing because These two are mandatory for any application. These two are the mandatory types of performance testing for any application. But some projects, they do only load testing. They don't do soak testing, but that is not correct. We have to do load testing and soak testing for every application, for every web application at least, right? When you got some performance project, you need to suggest or you need to conduct both load testing and soak testing as well. Clear, guys? Those are the mandatory types of performance testing that you need to execute, as part of performance testing for any application. Okay. And then next type of testing is scalability testing. Scalability testing is testing an application to verify how much it can scale. That means what is the maximum load that it can, bear, the application can support before it, this is testing an application for future user load. This is testing an application for future user load. Let's say, Facebook is having 2 billion users, it seems. Now suppose there are projections that for the next 2 years, there will be 3 billion users. I'm just taking some example numbers. Okay. Need not be accurate, but I'm just taking some example. Now we know if Facebook want to test whether, their application can support those 3 billion users, right? They do something called scalability testing to see how much it can scale up. Okay. And then the next type of testing is, there are a couple of other types of testing like failover testing and capacity testing. Okay. Failover testing and capacity planning testing or capacity testing, right? So let me give some example for this failover testing and capacity planning. These are also not, mandatory for every application, right? Because, we'll discuss why, right? But let me first explain what is failover testing. Okay. Let me first explain what is failover testing, right? So before discussing that in terms of software application perspective, so let me use some example. Let us discuss some real world example. Okay. So suppose there are frequent power cuts in your area and you want to have an uninterrupted power supply. You want to have uninterrupted power supply. So then what do you do, guys? There are frequent power cuts in your area and you want, uninterrupted power supply. Then what do you do, guys?
We take a power backup or inverter.
Right. So you'll go for a backup, right? You'll go for an inverter and as a backup, isn't it? So that, whenever your main environment is down, so your backup environment will be serving your purpose, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So similarly, software applications also, see whenever there is some, whenever suppose, before that, let me give some example. Okay. Let us take some example. Okay. So suppose, any software application, let's say, it will have a main environment and a backup environment. Okay. Your one second. We have to be engagement with each of them. So whenever, so any software application will be having a main environment and a backup environment. What is the purpose of this? Take some examples. Okay. So let's say in last year or before last year, we had floods in Mumbai, isn't it? We had floods in Mumbai and, normal life was disrupted for almost, 1 to 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Or we had Hudud Tufan in Vizag. And, in US, we frequently hear about these hurricanes. And in Japan, we frequently hear about earthquakes and all, isn't it? So, those are natural calamities that are beyond our human control, isn't it? So whenever there is a natural calamity like this, and suppose,
Lost your voice.
what is it? Yeah. So any software application will have a main environment and a backup environment. And what is the purpose of backup? Suppose your main environment is down for some reason, because of any of these natural calamities. Suppose your main environment is down for some reason, right? Some unavoidable, circumstances like this or natural calamities like this. And, but rest of the world should be able to continue using the application, isn't it? Suppose, see, Mumbai is called as commercial capital of India, isn't it? So, and, if you take SBI or, SBI, SBI. So SBI is having its headquarters in Mumbai. Not only SBI, but 70 to 80% of the companies are having their headquarters in Mumbai, and they used to also have their servers in Mumbai previously, only in Mumbai, right? So like their main office, main environment will be in Mumbai, and now last before 2 years or 1 year, like we had floods in Mumbai, and normal life was disrupted. There were see, they will have a power backup there also, but how much time that does the work, or their internet cables are broken, let's say for example, right? Or network cables were broken, isn't it? So now if the main environment is down for some reason, so suppose SBI net banking was down for 1 or 2 days because it is located in Mumbai, and normal like we had severe floods in Mumbai. But the rest of the world should be able to continue with their net banking operations, right? Yes or no? Only Mumbai got affected. Mumbai and surrounding areas got affected directly. But rest of the world, rest of the country should be able to use the SBI net banking application. They cannot wait, or they cannot, like they cannot, wait for their application to come up, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? So
Yeah,
for
true.
that, what they do is they set up a backup environment in some other geographic location, not in the same location, but they set up some backup environment in some other geographic location, right? So that is backup environment. Now whenever main environment is down, all the user load, all the users who are accessing the application, they will be automatically redirected to the backup environment. But but the backup environment will not be having same capacity as main environment, isn't it? Yes or no? Your inverter or your power backup will not have same capacity as your mains power, isn't it? We cannot run some appliances like AC or geyser or refrigerator on the backup environment. Yes or no, guys? On inverter, isn't it? So once the main environment is up, again, all the user load should come back to main environment, isn't it? So that is, doing this testing. So again, when you have a main environment and a backup environment, you need to make sure that, both are working seamlessly. If the main environment is down, automatically the user load should go to, and you are accessing your net banking application to do some credit card payment which is due on the same day, right? And the main environment is down. Now the like if the main environment is down, automatically your user request your should lead you to the backup environment, and your job should be done, your that fund transfer or payment should be done, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? Yes, understood, guys. Now,
Yes, yes.
if you want to test this, if you want to test whether your backup environment is able to serve the user request whenever main environment is down, we do this testing called failover testing. The testing that we do is called failover testing. This is just similar to like suppose you bought an inverter, and electrician came um, to install the inverter and give the power backup connections, isn't it? So before he leaves your place or before you make payment, he will ask what will he do, guys, to test whether it is working fine or not? What does he do? Guys, I am explaining what is, how do we do this failover testing.
You'll switch off your main switch or something and test
Exactly.
it.
So he'll switch off the mains power, and he will see whether all the important electrical connections are, like light and fans are working on that inverter or not, right? And again, once the main environment is once the main environment is up and running, once we get mains power, then they should not run on the backup environment, isn't it? They should not work on the inverter. So for that, he does something called failover testing. This is how we do failover testing for in the case of an inverter, in the case of a power backup, or in case of an inverter. So similarly for software applications also, we start the test. How do we do failover testing for software applications is we start some load test, okay, and then we bring down the main server, okay, main environment, servers in the main environment, okay. We start the load test first we start the load test, and initially all the user requests will go to the main environment, and now we'll bring down or stop the servers in the main environment, bring down the servers in the main environment, okay. And then we'll continue the test for some time, like half an hour or 1 hour. And after half an hour or 1 hour, we will again, so once we bring down the main environment, what happens, guys? Your user request should go to the backup environment. isn't it? User request, all the user load should go to backup environment. And once the main environment, suppose now you restart the servers in the main environment. If you bring up the main environment, now all the user load should get, even though they are in the middle of the session. Understood, guys? Even though you are in middle of a session, you logged in and you are doing some fund transfer. Now main environment is up and running. Now immediately your user request should switch to the main environment. Understood, guys? So this will, see, even in server clustering also it happens. When you have cluster of servers, this happens. Okay. Bring up the main environment and all the user load. We will verify if all the user load is going to back main environment now. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
So this is how we do this failover testing. Okay. And now there is another testing called capacity planning testing. So capacity planning means, whenever we do this software sizing, right? So your system sizing or application sizing. So we do this capacity planning testing. We'll discuss it later. Slightly difficult for beginners to understand. So we'll discuss this later. But these are the different types of testing that, that we do. And every application doesn't require all these types of testing. Important thing to note is all applications doesn't require these types of testing. Why I'm telling this is beginners will feel like, should not feel like, oh, we need to do these many types of testing if you are into performance testing. No, all applications doesn't require all these types of, every application doesn't require all these types of testing. So we need to decide, based on the application, we need to suggest to the client, or we need to decide which applications require what type of testing. So I'll stop it here, guys, for today. I will continue tomorrow. So any queries, guys, before we close today's session? So tomorrow we'll discuss in detail. This is not the end of the, this concept. Tomorrow we'll discuss, what in detail about what is load testing, how do we do that load testing, right? And what is soak testing? What is the objective of doing different types of testing, basically? So what is each type of testing, performance testing, and what is the objective of each of those different types? We'll discuss that tomorrow. Okay. So each test have some specific purpose or some specific objective to achieve. We'll discuss that tomorrow in detail. Okay. About all these types of testing. The next 2 slides will have this. And then once I complete this detailed explanation, then, we'll have a assessment. I am going to show you some graphs, and you need to identify what type of performance testing does that graph best represents. Okay, I'll show you some graphs and you need to identify what type of testing does that graph best represents. Clear, guys? So with this, I'll stop it here for today. And I have, for 5 graphs, I think. I have 5 different graphs. You need to, once I explain these different types of testing, you need to identify what type of testing does the graph best represents. Okay. So I'll stop it here, guys, for today. Now, any queries before we close today's session?
Yeah, Pawan, one query here. So
Yes.
when we tell that it is a stress test and a spike test, so if we perform stress test with a 100 user, the spike test would be 100 plus 100, or it will be separate.
Yeah, you'll understand tomorrow once I explain in detail. I'll explain tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
So stress testing and spike testing are different. So here, when you do stress testing, we do stress testing by gradual increase of user load, whereas spike means a sudden increase in the user load. That is the main
Okay.
difference. And the user load and all that depends on the application, depends on the requirement. We do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And whenever you do spike testing, we do only for shorter duration. We increase we'll bring up we suddenly increase the user load, but we will not sustain it for longer time. We will maintain it for only a shorter duration.
Okay.
So we'll discuss in detail tomorrow. That's what I said. We'll discuss about all these types in detail tomorrow, and then you'll get more clarity on this. Okay. I had just introduced, what are the different types of performance testing here. That's it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right, then. Any other queries not related to the subject?
Yeah. About
Shall I
that.
stop recording? 1 second. Let me stop recording and we can discuss that. Yeah. So can you please repeat your query? What is that?
So you were mentioning something about LR LoadRunner class will be separate and JMeter class will be separate.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
Yes. So we will continue this 10 to 11 batch for LoadRunner. So this will,
Mhm.
sorry, JMeter, sorry. So we'll continue this, 10 to 11 batch for JMeter,
Mhm.
right? And then once performance testing fundamentals are completed, right?
Mhm.
So that will take another 7 to 10 sessions. So
Okay.
once we are done with this performance testing fundamentals, then I will, the batch will be split into two. So we'll
Okay.
continue JMeter in the same timings, and LoadRunner I am planning to start from 11:30 to 12:30.
Okay.
So 10 to 11 will be JMeter, and some
Mhm.
people want to attend both these tools in parallel.
Mhm.
Okay, so they can attend from 10 to 11 JMeter and then 11:30 to 12:30 LoadRunner with a half an hour break in between,
Okay. So,
because
so
we need some buffer time.
I don't have much idea about those tools features. So all these both tools having similar features, or someone is above, or someone is.
Yeah, so basically LoadRunner is a licensed tool, and it supports almost every protocol in the market.
Mhm.
Okay, so LoadRunner is a very robust tool and a much matured tool compared to JMeter. So, and moreover, like, if you want to do, most of the product based companies use LoadRunner because it is a licensed tool. Some product based companies don't prefer open source tools, and
Yeah.
JMeter is an open source tool, you know that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So JMeter is an open source tool, so some product based companies don't prefer JMeter, so they will go for licensed tools like LoadRunner or NeoLoad. There is another
Okay.
tool called NeoLoad, which is, whose license cost is very economic compared to LoadRunner. LoadRunner is the costliest tool in performance testing space.
So LoadRunner is regularly giving the updates because when I started my career it was with HP and he sold it to someone.
Yeah, that
So
LoadRunner tool, so it was originally actually LoadRunner tool was actually developed by a company called Mercury. Okay.
Mercury, yeah, Mercury. Okay.
Then HP has acquired it from Mercury, and then after, at that time it was called as HP LoadRunner.
Mhm.
Again, like in 2016 or so, this LoadRunner was acquired by a company called Micro Focus. I think in 2016, if I remember it correctly. And again, like till from 2016 to 2022, it was called as Micro Focus LoadRunner, right?
Yeah.
And now in 2023, like this Micro Focus was acquired by OpenText. So this is OpenText LoadRunner now. You
Okay.
got it.
So they are
So
giving support for LoadRunner regular updates
yes,
for.
yes, every year, or not every year, but every year you will have a major version. Right now, 2024 LoadRunner 2024 is the latest version that we are using, and that was in the market, right?
Okay. Okay.
So LoadRunner 2024 is the latest version. You see here 24.1 means 20. This 24 refers to the year,
Year of
and
release.
1 is related to minor version, minor release. Okay,
Okay.
24.3 is the latest minor release.
Okay.
Dot 3 is the latest minor release. So this is LoadRunner 2024 version. And if you see here, this is mentioned as open text. You know,
Yes.
op-
Yes.
if you see that in the splash screen, that is called a splash screen, right? So it is mentioned as, open text because open text has acquired this recently. Okay.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
recently, but last year. Last year, like it was Micro Focus was acquired by OpenText. So right
Mm-hmm.
now it is called as OpenText LoadRunner. And the good thing with LoadRunner is like you can run performance testing with lakhs of users. It supports up to 50 lakh users.
Okay.
50 lakh users, like concurrent users. You can test with 50 lakh concurrent users.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And
we will be
it also
practice.
supports every protocol. It supports almost every protocol that is available in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas JMeter hardly supports 10 to 15 protocols. LoadRunner supports, around 36 protocols, if I remember it correctly. Or, if I can show you that. So obviously LoadRunner is much, robust tool, and, it supports up to 50 lakh user load. We can do up to 50 lakh user load. That is another striking feature of LoadRunner. Okay. And if you see the number of protocols wise also, LoadRunner supports, so if you see here, there are 6 protocols per column, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 36 protocols. It supports 36 protocols.
Okay.
And this is 24.1.
Mm-hmm.
In 24.3, they added some more protocols. 1 or 2 more protocols were added support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and product-based companies use this, and those who want to, like those who want to target a product-based company, it's advisable to learn LoadRunner as well, along with JMeter.
Okay. So the tool which will be installing like LoadRunner community or is a free edition. So does that have all the features to be means hands-on or there would
Yeah,
be
except user load, it will have all the features. So with the trial version or community edition, you can go up to only 50 user load.
okay, that's enough.
So if you see here, I'll show you that. Let me show you that. LoadRunner license utility. So, like they allow us with trial version, they will allow us, to go up to only 50 user load. Somewhere it should be. 1 second. Okay, I'll show that tomorrow. There is something called license utility, which will show you like, we will be limited.
Okay. No issues, Pawan. We can see tomorrow if you are running late or
Yeah.
something or something.
Yeah. The next batch guys are joining. I want to stop it here for today. But the trial version that we get right from which that supports only 50 user load.
I understood.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be enough.
If you want to go beyond, obviously you have to purchase some license, and they have different license bundles of LoadRunner. There are different license bundles. Like based on our requirement, we can go with the required license bundle.
Okay.
So these are the different license bundles of LoadRunner. You have Web 2.0, Web and SAB protocol, etc., etc.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I'll stop it here for today. We'll continue tomorrow. The next batch guys are joining.
Yeah.
Stopping the recording.